I always thought the hardest part of growing up was leaving home, but I was wrong. It turns out watching your own family change in ways you never asked for hurts even more. What happens when your dad marries someone who turns every family moment into a battlefield? And what do you do when she demands a title she never earned? I was 16 when my dad met Linda. At first, I tried to be polite. I mean, what teenager really wants to deal with their parent dating someone new? But I figured if she made him happy, I could at least be civil. What I didn't expect was the sheer tornado of drama she would bring into our lives, starting from day one. The first family vacation she joined should have been a peaceful getaway. My grandparents had paid for the whole trip, including meals and guided tours. It was their gift to the family, a way for all of us to bond and make memories. But Linda wasn't interested in any of that. The moment she found out dinner was part of the package, she threw a fit, said the restaurant was beneath her, that she didn't travel hours from home to eat cheap packaged food. We all thought it was a joke until she started yelling at my grandparents in front of everyone. No one stopped her, not even my dad. I remember sitting there watching her berate the people who raised him, who loved him, and wondering, who is this woman? And why does she feel entitled to act this way in someone else's family? From that moment on, I kept my guard up. Something about Linda felt off, and I wasn't wrong. When she moved in with my dad a few months later, things only got worse. I remember one morning hearing shouting from outside. She was in the front yard screaming at our neighbor about her dog supposedly watching her. The neighbor tried to explain the dog was just lying in the sun, but Linda wouldn't let it go. She demanded the dog be moved. The dog. Can you imagine starting a feud over eye contact with a golden retriever? She still talks about that neighbor with venom, calling her every name under the sun. And I wonder, how can someone hold on to that kind of hate for so long? It's like she needs a target just to function. And then there was my graduation. My dad wanted her there. I didn't. We argued about it, but I gave in for him. I figured one night I could handle it. But Linda turned it into a battlefield. She didn't ask if she could bring guests. She demanded that her entire family be invited. And when I said no, she lost it. For weeks, she ranted to anyone who would listen, coworkers, extended family, even strangers at the grocery store. I later found out she got a formal warning at work because of her outbursts. Looking back, I wonder why I didn't draw firmer boundaries sooner. Maybe I thought things would settle. Maybe I hoped my dad would see what I saw. But he didn't, or maybe he just chose not to. Now I ask you, what would you do if someone like this inserted themselves into your life and expected loyalty? Would you stay silent for the sake of family peace, or speak up and risk the fallout? Because as I found out, staying silent only allows people like Linda to take more. And by then, it's so much harder to take it back. My relationship with my dad changed after she came into our lives. And as much as I tried to pretend otherwise, the truth was clear. The closer he got to her, the further he drifted from me. As the years passed, the space between my dad and me didn't just grow, it thickened, like fog, like silence that filled a room even when we were both in it. I knew why. He might have never said it outright, but Linda was the unspoken reason behind every awkward dinner, every skipped phone call, every plan that quietly fell through. And the thing is, I don't think my dad ever stopped loving me. But love isn't just a word, it's presence, it's action, it's showing up. And with Linda, showing up often meant choosing her, and choosing her meant choosing chaos. The tension between us came to a head on his 60th birthday. I remember walking into the restaurant where we were all meeting. I had tried to be mentally prepared for whatever scene Linda would create that evening. There was always a scene, a look, a fight, a loud sigh, some small insult that turned into an argument. It was like she was addicted to conflict and none of us had the cure. Things were going okay at first. My Aunt Margaret had brought a small, beautiful dessert just for Dad. A personal favorite from a local bakery he used to love. It was sweet, thoughtful, and completely unprompted. But of course, Linda turned it into a declaration of war. She narrowed her eyes the moment she saw the dessert and muttered something like, "Trying to steal my thunder, huh?" My aunt blinked, clearly confused. Linda didn't stop there. She accused Aunt Margaret of trying to upstage her, of being entitled, of making this night about herself. It was so absurd I almost laughed. Oh, but I didn't. I was too busy watching my dad shrink into his chair. He didn't say a word. He never did when Linda started these tirades. What would you do in that moment? Would you call her out and risk blowing up the dinner, or stay quiet and let your dad sit in that quiet shame? My aunt, being the graceful woman she is, ignored her entirely. But the air was heavy. No one was enjoying their food after that. It felt like we were all trapped in her emotional storm, just waiting for it to pass so we could escape without being drenched in the aftermath. After that night, I stopped pretending. I stopped hoping she'd change, or that my dad would finally stand up to her. Instead, I started building emotional boundaries. I told Dad that if he wanted to see me, we'd have to make plans without her. Lunches, coffee, walks in the park, just us. And to my surprise, he agreed. He didn't fight it. Maybe because deep down he understood why I needed that distance. Or maybe he missed me too. But even then, I could feel the guilt in him. The tension of living between two worlds, one filled with his daughter's quiet disappointment and the other with his wife's constant noise. When I think about the future, it's hard not to imagine the milestones, weddings, birthdays, children. And every time I picture them, I picture Linda not being there. Not because I'm cruel, not because I want to erase her, but because she never gave me a reason to include her. Is it wrong to protect your peace, even if it means someone else gets left out? That's the question I ask myself every time she throws another fit. Every time she sends a snide message or tries to guilt trip me through my father. And every time I come back to the same answer. Some people don't belong in every chapter of your story, especially the ones who tried to rip the pages out before you could write them. I used to wonder if Linda even realized how deeply her presence affected our family. If she ever took a moment, just one, to reflect on how she made people feel. But the truth revealed itself clearly during one unforgettable night that pulled the last thread of patience from my hands. It was my Uncle Tom's birthday, a laid-back gathering with laughter, good food, and the kind of warmth you only feel around people who truly know you. Everyone was relaxed until Linda showed up. I could tell she was in a mood the second she walked in. Her smile was stretched too tight, her laugh too sharp. I've learned to spot her tempers before they ignite. This time, the spark came from something as trivial as a passing comment. Uncle Tom casually joked that her favorite restaurant, some overpriced place known more for its Instagrammable decor than its food, was overrated. It was harmless, even playful. But Linda didn't take it that way. She bristled. Her face twisted like someone had just insulted her personally. She interrupted the conversation, cutting off my cousin mid-sentence, and launched into a rant defending the place like she owned stock in it. At first, everyone tried to move on. We chuckled, gave her space, tried to let the moment pass. But Linda didn't let it go. She kept circling back, like a dog with a bone, hammering away at my uncle for disrespecting her taste. It turned ridiculous fast. And that's when Uncle Tom, clearly fed up, said something that broke the room's composure. He said, "Maybe you need to be medicated or something. You go off like a yapping dog whenever someone doesn't agree with you." I should have stayed quiet, I know that. But the truth is I laughed. I didn't mean to, it just came out. A short, surprise bark of a laugh that I instantly regretted, but it also didn't. Because in that moment, someone had finally said what I'd been thinking for years. Linda turned to me, her eyes wide with fury, and spat out, "You should be defending me. What are you going to tell your kids one day? Why you let people talk to their grandma like that?" And that's when the words came out of my mouth without a second thought. "You won't be their grandma." Silence. "You'll be grandpa's wife they never see," I added. I didn't scream it. I didn't throw it like a weapon. I said it plainly, like a fact I had already made peace with. Linda looked like I had slapped her, her face flushed with rage, and she started yelling. About respect, about family, about how I had no right. She had to be removed from the party. My dad stayed behind, shoulders heavy, and apologized for the scene she made. He didn't try to defend her. Since then, she's been trying to force contact. Calls, texts, long guilt-tripping voice messages, where she says things like, "You'll be a terrible mother for raising your kids with hatred," or "I deserve to be their grandmother." But how do you explain to someone that titles aren't earned by marriage? They're earned by love, by presence, by kindness. What would you do if someone tried to guilt you into handing over a role they never lifted a finger to deserve? Do we owe people a place in our future just because they forced their way into our past? Because I know this, when I do have kids, I want to raise them in peace, not in the shadow of someone else's storm. After the birthday blow up, I waited for the fallout, not from Linda, but from my dad. I expected a call, a lecture, maybe even some guilt-laced attempt to smooth it all over. But instead, when he called me the next day, his voice was tired. Not angry, just tired. Like someone who had spent too many years trying to hold up both sides of a collapsing bridge. He didn't say much, just that he was sorry for how things went, and he hoped I was okay. There was a pause after that, a silence that begged to be filled, but neither of us had the right words. He never defended Linda's behavior. Not that day, not in the days that followed. And for the first time, I realized maybe he was tired of her too. Still, the damage was already done. Linda didn't stop. Her messages kept coming, each one dripping with self-pity and accusations. You're punishing me for loving your father. You're robbing me of the chance to be a real grandma. One day your children will resent you for this. Each voicemail made my stomach churn. How do you explain to someone like Linda that being present isn't the same as being wanted? That forcing yourself into someone's life doesn't make you family. It makes you a stranger in the room. What really struck me, though, was how she always phrased it, like I was denying her something that belonged to her. As if children, love, even respect, were things she could claim just by demanding them loudly enough. But respect, especially in a family, doesn't come from volume. It comes from consistency, from warmth, from being safe to be around. Linda was none of those things. When I told her she'd never be grandma to my future kids, it wasn't out of spite. It was clarity. It was truth. I thought about the kind of environment I wanted to raise children in, one that nurtures, not one that intimidates. One where birthdays don't end in shouting matches, and where someone's bad mood isn't everyone else's burden to carry. Would you let someone who constantly hurts you become a guiding figure in your child's life? Or would you protect your peace, no matter who it upsets? These are the questions I now wrestle with, not out of doubt, but from the sadness that always comes with choosing distance over connection. Because I do wish things had been different. I wish Linda had walked into our lives with kindness instead of entitlement. I wish she'd tried to earn her place rather than assume it. And I wish more than anything that my dad didn't have to live between the two of us, his wife's chaos and his daughter's withdrawal. Because I see the pain in his eyes when we talk. I see the way he's trying to hold on to both of us without letting go of himself. And maybe he knows deep down that he can't. Maybe he already made his choice the day he kept letting her yell while saying nothing. But I made my choice too. My boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. And if my future kids ever ask why they don't have a grandma on that side, I'll tell them honestly. I'll tell them that not everyone who marries into a family becomes one. Some people stay visitors no matter how long they're around. Because love may be unconditional, but access to my life, to my peace, and to my children, that has always been something earned. People often talk about forgiveness like it's a one-size-fits-all solution. Like letting go of the pain means you have to open the door again. But I've learned that sometimes forgiveness is closing the door gently, then locking it and walking away without slamming it shut. That's what I've done with Linda. I don't hate her. I don't sit around thinking of ways to make her feel excluded. But I also don't owe her access to the life I'm building. Not when every memory I have of her is loud, sharp, and soaked in tension. Not when I've spent years shrinking myself just to keep the peace she so easily shattered. I've started picturing the life I want. A wedding that feels warm, surrounded by people who lift each other up. A home where laughter isn't followed by an argument. Children raised in a space where they can be curious, soft, imperfect, without walking on eggshells. And in every version of that life, Linda just isn't there. She's not in the front row at the ceremony. She's not helping decorate a nursery. She's not called grandma in sweet little voices or drawn into crayon pictures. And that's not some vengeful fantasy. It's just peace. It's me finally choosing peace over guilt, over drama, over obligation. And my dad, he still walks a line. He visits me on weekends sometimes, and we talk like we used to. Not always about deep things, but about life, about music, about old family stories that make us laugh. I can see in his eyes that he's grateful for those moments. But I can also see the grief, the kind that comes from knowing something was lost. Not in a single blowout, but in 1,000 quiet moments he let pass without standing up. Sometimes I wonder if he regrets it. But here's the thing, I don't ask him to choose anymore. I don't ask him to leave her or defend me or explain why he didn't stop her when she humiliated people I love. I've stopped waiting for closure that will never come. Instead, I give him space in my life where I can, where I'm not sacrificing my peace to make room for his. Would you let a parent keep bringing their pain into your future? Or would you set the boundary, even if it means they can only come halfway? That's what I've done. And Linda, she still tries. Every few weeks, another message pops up. Sometimes it's angry, sometimes it's sugar-coated. Once, she even tried sending me a baby blanket she just thought I might like for the future. I didn't respond. I didn't lash out. I didn't even return it. I just placed it in a donation box, closed the lid, and moved on. Because that's what healing looks like sometimes. Not dramatic speeches or explosive fights, just quiet choices, gentle rejections, and a firm, unwavering commitment to choosing better for yourself and for the people you love. One day, if I'm lucky enough to hold a child of my own, I'll look into their eyes and know I made the right call. That I shielded them from someone who never learned how to love without conditions, without control, without chaos. And I'll teach them what real love looks like, not just in words, but in actions, in patience, in presence. Because the legacy I want to leave behind doesn't start with Linda. It starts with me. What would you have done in her shoes? Would you have protected your peace, even if it meant drawing a hard line with family? She didn't ask for this chaos. She only wanted love, stability, and respect. If her story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It lets her know she's not alone, that her strength and boundaries are seen. Sometimes all someone needs is to feel heard. So tell us in the comments, do you think she made the right choice? What would you do if someone demanded a title they never earned?